So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to run through a little just introduction stuff, and then we'll go into some housekeeping. This is who I am. I am a member of the customer education team here at ForeFlight. Our team consists of 3 people. It's myself. If you were here for the 10 a.m., Dan is our other member. Our third teammate was supposed to be here at Sun and Fun, but his wife had their first child recently, so he made the command decision that it's probably better to stay home with his wife than to come in Sun and Fun for a week to do that. So very quickly about me, I've been at ForeFlight about 2.5 years now. Prior to that, I was an NCO in the Army, and then I was in high school for 12 years. So you won't hurt my feelings at any point if you get up and walk out. I assure you I've been through much, much worse in those roles. All right, so if you were here earlier when Dan did his ForeFlight fundamentals, he had started on with a QR code. I'll explain what this QR code is showing. If you have ForeFlight in your device and you hold it up to this QR code, even if you're not connected to the internet, what this will do is load a route onto ForeFlight for you. So the reason we started doing this is after several of these shows, people tell us it's hard to follow along. We try to tell people you don't have to follow along, that all of this will be on the internet. You don't need to follow along and do exactly what I'm doing. But then we gave up that fight because we realized people want to follow along. So in order to make that a little easier, rather than me say something and wait for someone, and then say something and wait for someone, is this will just preload the route I'm talking about. Now, I'm going to go through how I built it, but if you want to have this loaded and then kind of like backfill as you're observing, how did I get from here to here to here, this is how that is loaded. If you're curious how to make these, if you're in a flying club or a flight school or something, and like, hey, that's kind of neat. I'd like to be able to share route information that way. It's a little more complex than we have time for here, but I'd be glad to walk you through it, walk you through how to do that. But the other thing I want to point out is if you're doing this, this will not recenter your map on the route. So this route is in the center of the United States. You're currently in Florida. So if you do this and your map doesn't move, just move over towards the center of the United States. And depending on your scale, you may have to zoom in or zoom out. But that's all this is. You don't need to do any of this. All of these are recorded. These will all be on the internet within a couple weeks. You'll notice I'm wearing a second microphone. This is what's recording the audio for our seminar. So I am going to start on the flights tab. So this is something that came up recently in a training I did. We do military training as well. This is something I did 2 weeks ago, and it became kind of a joke. So I just want to ask, for those of you who plan on ForeFlight, how many of you do your primary flight planning on the flights tab? OK, how many of you do the primary flight planning on the maps tab? All right, so the reason I brought that up is one of the people who's more senior in our military aviation group, we had a meeting about the trainings we do and how effective they are, et cetera, and he kept telling me nobody plans on the maps tab. Nobody plans on the maps tab. They all plan the flights tab first. And I was like, OK, sure. Like, you're my boss. I'll do whatever you want. So I rechanged my stuff to the flights tab, and then we asked military folks, like, hey, do you guys use the flights tab? And it was like 2 guys. So I'm starting in the flights tab. I'm using kind of it's a scenario, and I'll explain my scenario here and why I'm starting on the flights tab. So my idea is I've basically completed my flights planning, my basic flight planning, and now I'm viewing it on the flights tab to get a little more information that isn't as readily available on the maps tab. So you can see I already have this pre-populated. I'm not building a route from scratch, but you could. If you prefer on the flights tab, you can go ahead and do that. Another thing that we always mention in these trainings that isn't, well, I'll just ask, how many of you do flight planning on ForeFlight.com? OK, all of you have access to it. For many people, flight planning with a keyboard and a mouse on a bigger monitor or multiple monitors is an easier activity. If you didn't know it, you all have access to ForeFlight.com. It's your same login. If you've never logged in before and want to see what the website looks like, we have stations set up at our booth that we can walk you through. So I just want to highlight some of the things I already have set up on here. I basically already planned my route. I have a planned ETD. The planned ETD is important. The reason that's important is we will pull forecast weather for your route. So if you're trying to plan and the weather looks wonky or you're not getting weather, it's possible you did not include an ETD. We will automatically start, I think it's 2 hours after you start entering the flight, we'll start building in an ETD. But anyway, I have my ETD, and the reason I want to highlight that is if I change that, my weather information will change too. So right now, I'm showing my ETD, and my scenario that I've built up for this is the first leg in a multi-leg cross country. That's what I'm planning. So I'm planning from Georgetown, that's my home airport north of Austin, into, I assume that's Topeka. I don't actually remember when I did this. I'm going to assume that's Topeka. So Georgetown to Topeka, departing February 17th, 2025. So in addition to planning my ETD, I've already included my departure airport and my destination airport. If you are following along in the Maps tab and you don't see these buttons, the takeoff and landing here, that's a feature for Performance Plus subscribers where I get takeoff and landing analysis of most piston aircraft. There's select turboprop, but most piston aircraft are included in there, and you'll get things like, you'll get like your takeoff roll, landing roll, all of that information. And it can be adjusted based on runway conditions, based on weather conditions. But if you don't see those buttons, that's why. Because I have a Performance Plus subscription that the company pays for, and I'm able to get access to that. Additionally, I have my aircraft selected. The performance summary, which is across the top that I'll highlight in a moment, the performance summary will also change based on my departure, based on my destination, based on my aircraft, based on the weather. Because what's happening is we are summarizing your aircraft's performance. If you change any of those variables, that will change as well. And we'll see that as I'm adjusting my flight. We should see changes made to my performance summary. I have also assigned a performance profile across the bottom. If this is left blank, you may also have some wonky data across the top with the performance summary. The performance summary I'm referring to is right there. It is very similar to what is in the Maps tab. However, these are generated using two different engines. So if you're flipping back and forth between the map and the flights tab and you notice small discrepancies, just know that there's two different programming engines that are generating these performance summaries. But I can see the distance. All I've done so far is, I think this is just a direct to distance, time en route, my ETA, my flight fuel, and my wind. And the wind is an average of winds across my flight. So on average, I'll have a 15-knot tailwind. In this example, I'm flying basically a straight line north-ish. So that's probably going to be pretty close. For this leg, I'm going to, again, I already planned this. Let's assume I planned this in my Maps tab like most of us do. Send it over to my Flights tab. Some additional functionality that's not on my Maps tab is I can add an alternate airport. Gary, I was sitting in here where he was talking about the alternate airports, how those work. We will, like Gary mentioned, advise you what we think are the most appropriate alternates. You can ignore everything we say. If, like Gary was saying, he had some local knowledge about one of the alternates we suggested. He didn't think it was ideal. Where this says airport code here, you can just hand jam in. Just type in an ICAO identifier for the airport you prefer to use as an alternate. Generally speaking, the way our alternate advisor works is as long as it meets your minimum runway length requirements and it's within 100 nautical miles of the missed approach point, it will be recommended. And then it's typically going to be closest to farthest in the order. There's a little more complexity in how that advisor works, but generally speaking, it's those, as long as it meets those two rules, it'll be recommended. So go ahead and pick the one you prefer, or pick what you prefer, or you can go ahead and select one manually. You'll select it, it'll be highlighted, you'll see where it is on the map relative to your destination, and then just go ahead and select any routing options. By default, this will always route you direct from the missed approach point to your alternate, but if you want to or need to, you can select an alternate route, a different route to your alternate. You can adjust the altitude and adjust your cruise profile here so that when you're diverting to their alternate, the performance summary will be more accurate. However you want to do it, just go ahead and add this to your route, and we can see this is added now as direct route. Because I'm a performance user, I can see my landing information here if I'd like to. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit. I'm going to look at my performance profiles. This is something that is dependent on your aircraft and dependent on your subscription level, how this appears. I'm a Performance Plus subscriber. This aircraft, because of this aircraft, and because I'm a Performance Plus subscriber, I have pre-built performance profiles. I don't need to do anything. Well, I shouldn't say that. I need to verify they are correct. But ForeFlight has worked with the manufacturers, pulled information from the POH, and built these performance profiles for you. If you're not a Performance Plus subscriber, you have the option to build one yourself. You just get out your POH. It should all be in the performance section of the POH, and you should be able to go through and build that out. That's what this button is here. It says Add Basic Performance Profile. If you are Performance Plus and you're using an aircraft that we have built these for already, you will be able to just select them from the dropdown, what you'd like to use. If you're not sure if your aircraft has these built, When you go in, I'm not going to walk through it here. When you go into aircraft, add new aircraft type, enter in the type you're looking for. If we've built the performance profile for that, underneath the type, there'll be blue text that says performance profile available. And if we've built weight and balance profiles, underneath that, it'll say weight and balance template available. So if you've never messed with that, again, now might not be the best time, but you can hit one of us up in the booth or afterwards. So if you are building your own profiles, basically you're going to enter in true airspeed and fuel burn for the different phases of flight, and there's no limit to the number of profiles you can create. I'm just going to use normal cruise here. Normal cruise was not what I had selected earlier. You can see I had my high speed cruise selected. I'll go ahead and select my normal cruise. There's a very small change, but there was a change made to my performance profile because I made that change to my cruise performance. The inset map here, so this is showing me a brief overview of my route and my weather conditions. This is not the same tool that's on the map. If I wanted to see all my detailed layers in the map, I would send this to the map. This is showing current weather, not forecast. So just be aware of that when you're planning. If you're planning days in advance and you're looking at this and being like, oh, that looks clear or that looks not clear, this is current, not forecast. If you want to look at the forecast, we have other weather tools for that. On this chart, we're just looking at the current weather. Scroll down a little bit, see if I need to make any changes to my route. I already have a route string entered here. If you just did this with departure, destination, airport pair, this would be loaded up. This would be loaded up as direct. Again, I already have my field in here. You can hand jam in waypoints if you know which ones you're using. If you're doing this on the web, this is something that a lot of military guys do, is they plan on the web because they have published routes that they want to do, well, internally published. And you can just copy and paste into here too if you're doing this on web. So if you prefer that workflow, do that. Type it up however you want. If you leave it as direct or now, you can use the route advisor. You'll notice it says routes 1. So based on my selection, and Gary talked about this too, we can get suggested routes. These are between our airport pairs, so between our departure and destination airport pairs. The basic idea I just want to call out here is you can see that we will give you an estimate of time en route and fuel burn based on those routes. Sometimes you'll see half a dozen routes, sometimes more than half a dozen, but at its most basic, you can make your decision. Maybe that's all you need. Maybe all you need to make your decision is fuel burn and time en route. The ATC recommended, those are only for Performance Plus subscribers. The basic idea there is we are recommending it based on projected ETE and fuel burn. And I believe our metric is there's a 90% chance it will be approved by ATC as filed. On the upper right-hand corner, a lot of people have never ever used this before. This is our filters and constraints tab. If there's specific ways you want to fly or need to fly, maybe specific altitude parameters, maybe there's things you want to avoid. If you tap on that, you'll see a list of filter options. You can say, these are my altitude parameters, minimum, maximum. I want to avoid waypoint X. Then you hit Route Advisor again, and we'll generate a new route for you based on whatever it is you've told us you would like to avoid. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my ForeFlight recommended route. Once I tap that, if I had a bunch of different routes showing, you'd be able to see them kind of like a spaghetti plot all around, and it'll be highlighted in blue. Once I hit select route, whatever I had in my route string is now replaced by that specific route. So again, all I've done, again, I'm taking more time to explain this than it takes to do. I'm sure if you've done this, you know it takes 2 minutes to do. I'm just walking through it all step by step. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down and do some weight and balance planning. You'll notice I only have one individual here at 200 pounds, and my total payload is listed at 300 pounds because I have 100 pounds of cargo loaded. There's several different ways in ForeFlight we can do our weight and balance planning. What I am going to do is, because I'm a Performance Plus subscriber, I can do all my weight and balance planning right here in this screen. If you are a Basic or Pro Plus subscriber, you would go to the Weight and Balance tab. Functionality is effectively the same, except you're going to manually enter in some numbers rather than just pulling it from the flight information. If you need a demo of how this works outside of Performance, I'd be glad to show you that when we have a little more time. This QR code, by the way, it's that website. The reason I wanted to throw that up there is the last 2 webinars we did, one was on weight and balance planning. So if you want more information on weight and balance planning, if you go to this foreflight.com/webinars, just scroll down a little bit to recent webinars. That's the first one. The one right underneath that is planning a VFR cross country. Both of them are about an hour long. Both were quite popular. I think we had 3,000 people attend the cross-country one, and 1,500 people at the weight and balance one. So if you need more information on this, or if I'm going too quickly, visit those webinars. You can watch them at your own pace. They're on YouTube also. You can adjust the speed and all that stuff. So because I'm a Performance Plus subscriber, I'm going to do my weight and balance planning right here in the Flights tab. I'm not going to navigate away. All I did was I tapped on the People field, and you can see now persons on board was 1. It will always be 1 at a minimum because you need a pilot. So this will always default to 1, and my default weights are what are being used here. So I'm just going to go ahead and change that to 4 people. So I have 4 people. I didn't change anything else. I just changed my persons count. Error appeared at the top. Lots of different ways I can go in and resolve this. I can try to figure out what's wrong first. If I tap on that banner, I can see what's wrong. In this case, I've exceeded my max weight by 31 pounds. Practically speaking, I'm going to guess not all my passengers weigh 200 pounds, and I'm probably fine. If I needed to or wanted to, I could go in and with more specificity adjust those loads and make sure I'm within weight. I know for a fact that I am, if I just put my accurate weight in, I'd be back within balance. I'm not 200 pounds. But if I wanted to do this with more specificity, a couple different ways we could do it. I'm going to navigate over to my weight and balance tab. And this is something that is a new-ish feature that if you were here for what's new in ForeFlight, you might have seen this already. This is our graphical weight and balance. This is for Performance Plus subscribers. It is, for most GA pilots, it's just kind of neat. I don't know if it has a lot of utility, but that's what this is. If you have never seen this before, this is graphical weight and balance. You can enable this on the website. You go to the web, go to your aircraft, go to weight and balance profiles. Right-hand side, you'll see this. There's a toggle that says, do you want to enable this on mobile? Toggle that on, and then you can have this on mobile. The interface is different, but the end result is identical. So you can use the graphical weight and balance to start to adjust individual positions, individual weights. You can scroll down and just adjust these seats here. So I'm just going to go ahead and tap in, and I want to highlight something. Again, this is a feature that's not advanced per se, but it's something not everyone is aware exists. You can save loads. So if you and your significant other, you and your best friend, you and whomever, you and your dog are always flying together in the same positions, you can just save them. So you don't have to go in and enter in their weight every time. That's what this is with saved loads. You can say I have myself, my wife, and Ryan are all saved here. If those are the people who are flying this aircraft regularly, you just go ahead and tap those rather than enter in the individual numbers. This doesn't save a ton of time, but it's a non-zero amount of time. I'm going to go ahead and add myself. I'm 158. And you can see I adjusted my other passenger weights as well. They were all 200 pounds earlier. A couple different ways you can do this. Obviously, you can ask everyone what they weigh. You can try to get a good count. Maybe it's just something as simple as your cargo weight. In this case, I also moved my cargo from the fore to the aft of the aircraft. And now I'm within my CG limits. So really quick fix. All I really did was adjust some passenger weights to more accurately match what those passengers actually weighed, and I can see that I'm now back within limits. In some cases, this may be something where you take less fuel, plan a stop in between. Lots of different ways you can make these adjustments, but that's on my weight and balance tab. I'm going to go ahead and navigate back. I'm going to scroll down slightly. I'm in my fuel policy here. This can be adjusted if needed. By default, this is always set to minimum fuel required. We had an individual who came to the booth either yesterday or the day before who was having constant errors about fuel burn. And they're like, this isn't what my fuel burns. This is not correct. It's not correct. And we looked at their device, and they had a fuel policy set to basically add so much extra fuel that it was throwing off all their calculations. Minimum fuel policy is always be the default, but you have the option to change that. If you were doing the weight and balance under the weight and balance tab, not on here, this is where you'd get those weights to manually enter in. So on that webinar, if you haven't seen it and do watch it at some point, what I walk through on the webinar is having my phone with the flight information and then my iPad with weight and balance, so I can just read the data from the phone and enter it into the iPad. If that doesn't make sense, it's because if you don't have Performance Plus, these data need to be entered in on a separate tab, and it's just a way to make sure you don't have to toggle back and forth. Again, I can walk you through that if you'd like me to explain that in more detail. So I'm not going to adjust my fuel policy. I'm just going to go ahead and scroll down. Let's assume that first leg of my trip was a fuel stop. Couple different ways we can do this. The simplest way, honestly, is just on the Maps tab. There's a fuel data layer. You can tap on the fuel data layer, and wherever it's been reported, we will show you the fuel prices at that airport, at that FBO. So I want to just specify it's wherever it has been reported. So not every airport reports their fuel information to us. We can only display data that we have. But that's what we'll see here. We can set an FBO. We can set a fuel order. If you tap on that, you can see, again, if it's reported, I can see the information for that FBO. I can see what they're charging for fuel as of this date. If you have a JetFuelX card connected to your ForeFlight account, you can see what the rate is that you are paying there. You can also, from this FBO tab, you can place a phone call if you're doing this on your iPhone. You can get driving directions. You can send an email. Lots of different options here if you're planning this as a fuel stop or something like that. If I'm departing shortly, the last thing I want to do on this tab is I want to pack for my flight. The pack is the same function that's on the map. The only difference here is we don't show you this exclamation point explaining that you need to update it. The short version of this is it's best practice to pack just before you lose internet access, because you don't want to pack, depart 6 hours later, and then not have the most updated information when you lose internet access at altitude. So this is what the pack will look like. It's identical to what you see on the Maps tab. You'll get an icon telling you how big of a download it is. In this case, it was fairly large because this is outside of the region I normally operate in. This is also one you want to do this prior to losing internet access. So before filing, I want to make sure I get an updated weather briefing. I can do that across the top just by tapping on my briefing button here. This is in compliance with 91.103. It will be updated every time you tap the briefing button. However, an internet connection is required. So if you aren't departing right now, make sure you rebrief prior to losing internet access. There's a couple different versions of this. What I'll display is called the graphical PDF. If you come to the weather products in ForeFlight, I'll show you the different version. But this is what our weather briefing looks like. We'll go ahead and pull this up. This is my briefing. I'm going to scroll down and just highlight some of the data in here. I'm not going to talk about every single thing, but I do want to point out every briefing is time-stamped, so we can see when that was pulled up. So again, if you're briefing a flight for tomorrow, you're welcome to brief it now. Just know that if you open it up and have never refreshed it, this timestamp will decay in its color. So it'll become amber and then red as it gets older and older. If you want to manually force a refresh, just go ahead and tap on that refresh button, and we'll manually refresh that. So what we're looking at here is the graphical PDF version. Most of you probably have the graphical HTML version. That's where you have the navigable menu at the left-hand side. If you prefer this one, you can switch that under settings. And again, if someone wants to know how to switch, I can show you. The reason I have this is because business accounts have graphical PDF, and my account is a business account. Tomorrow, I'll show you the difference between the two, though. Data is basically the same. All right, so I'm just scrolling down. You can see the different things that are included in my briefing package. This is my ICAO flight plan. There's ways to view this before filing. If you want to make sure what we are transmitting to ATC matches what you expect, this is one way you can preview this, just in the briefing package. I'll just continue to scroll down. Each individual weather product includes a timestamp and a source at the top, so you get an idea of how old that information is. That's part of your briefing product. Every single product will show a timestamp and an information source. I'm going to show several of these, just highlight that. Timestamp and information source. And we'll also include things like an overflight report if you're flying over multiple different airspaces. We'll include METARs and TAFs for both departure, destination, alternate, and en route airports are displayed there. We have any SIGMETs will be displayed. Any NOTAMs will be displayed. One of the things I want to call out, if the NOTAMs are safety related, they will be highlighted with that red bold text there with Uniform Sierra. I believe that's unserviceable. So in the NOTAMs, as you're browsing it, you get an idea of what maybe those are the ones you really need to pay attention to. So basically, my route is done. Well, it was done before. It's a couple other things I might want to preview. I'll take a look at my nav log. Just like with the briefing, the nav log refreshes as you get new information. When you're ready to fly, if you want to check out your nav log a couple hours prior, great. Otherwise, make sure you refresh this before departing. There's different nav log formats you have access to. I think what we're looking at here is the basic format. You have access to the standard. If you're a business user, you have access to an international format as well. On the lower right-hand corner, I just like pointing out stuff that you guys won't have access to, so you're not like, what the hell is that? I don't have that. This is for specific business customers, the active navlog. If you are a business operator interested in anything involving oceanic plotting, that's the feature you'd want. We can demonstrate that for you if you like. So I'm just going down, scrolling through my navlog. I can see all my en route information. This includes my top of climb, top of descent, any en route waypoints I've created. If you're planning a direct to route, so instead of what I did with, I used the route advisor, let's say you're just going point A to point B, and there's no intervening waypoints, ForeFlight will automatically assign intervening waypoints at 100-mile distances along that route. So you'll pull up a navlog, and if you didn't enter in waypoints and we're showing you lat long as intervening points, that's why. Every 100 nautical miles, we will insert a waypoint into your navlog. All right, once I'm ready, I'm going to go ahead and file this. I can tap on Proceed to File. Any field in blue is editable, so just verify that everything is correct. This is what's going to be transmitted to ATC. Some fields are optional. Some fields are required. Most everything should be auto-filled for you. I mentioned you can use the briefing package to preview the IKO filing form. If you tap on this button, you can do the same thing. You can open it as a PDF. You can print it out. So if you want to see what we're communicating to ATC, or you want a hard copy or something, that button will do that for you. I'm going to go ahead and file. You'll get a confirmation. It'll pop up and say, are you ready to file this IFR flight plan departing 4 days, 5 hours, and 6 minutes from now? It will tell you when now is. We'll go ahead and hit file when we're ready. It'll take a moment to transmit this to ATC, but now you'll see some new options. So that's all electronic filing is. If there were an error, you would receive an error message. If you file or attempt to file, I believe the trigger is 3 times the same route, and you get rejected 3 times by ATC, we will contact you. So we have pilot support people who are like monitoring this. They have algorithms that say, Dave tried to file this flight plan 3 times in 2 minutes and it kept getting rejected. Something's wrong with either Dave or the flight plan. We'll reach out to you to try to fix it. Once it's accepted, though, you have some options here. You can see cancel and amend. If this was a VFR flight plan, you would have options to activate and deactivate also. So I'm just going to go ahead, and I think I just canceled that. I didn't fly that route, so I don't want to get in trouble for filing that, so I just canceled it pretty shortly after I did this. All right, so to keep looking at some of my more tools, I'm going to send this over to my Maps tab. Most of us, this is how we do our planning. If you scan that QR code, this is what should have loaded up on your map. This is the route that I planned. So I had my departure airport. You'll notice I have a runway assigned because I have that takeoff and landing performance analysis. I can assign a departure runway and I can assign a destination runway on the flights tab. I had assigned a departure runway, but these are all the points that were included based on the recommended route I got from ForeFlight. I have my performance summary across the bottom here, so I can get an idea, again, just like I looked in the flights tab, my ETE, my wind across the route. If you notice that some of these wind numbers are different, it's because these screenshots weren't taken on the same day. The data is the same if you're doing this all at the same time. So I want to look at some of my more situational awareness, more weather tools to make sure I'm ready to fly this flight rather. I'm going to go ahead and tap on my profile view in the lower right-hand corner. And if I am a pro or performance user, this is what I have access to. I'll be able to see airspace on the map. I'm sorry, airspace on my profile view. And I can see that there are those 2 airspace callouts. I have this, well, more than 2, but these are the 2 larger ones. And I can see whether or not I need to be concerned. Am I passing through those? Am I passing over those? Am I passing under them? This just gives me a good overview of that. This data is on the map too, but now we're seeing that vertical cross-section of our route. So one of the things I wanted to highlight, and this is a video, and I might play it a couple times because it goes a little quick. So if you look on the far right here, it looks like my descent is coming close to some terrain. Let's assume I've never been here before. I have no idea what that is. But there's some red here. So I can see, I know the way my ForeFlight's set up, that something is within 100 miles of my planned altitude right here. So I want to know what that is. Now, maybe if you know the area, it doesn't matter. You know what it is. But I want to know what that is. So this is a tool that is something that most users aren't aware of. If you tap and hold in the profile bar, again, this is going to be a video rather than a demo. But if you tap and hold in the profile bar, you can slide. You see that little green icon? There you go. So that will reflect what you're looking at on the map. So if there's terrain or airspace or something in the profile view that you're like, I don't know what that is. I'm going to replay that again. But what you'll see is I tapped and held here, a little green dot appeared. That green dot is almost like a handle. That will then appear on the map. And as I scrub this way or scrub that way on the profile, it will follow along my route, and I can see what I'm looking at in real time on both layers, basically. So if I need to know where specific airspace is, or if I need to know where that terrain is, tapping and holding, you can see it changes color too. So I get an idea like, yeah, there is a hazard warning wherever that point was. I might want to zoom in a little more. Maybe it's just a cell tower I can easily avoid. Maybe I need to route around it because it's a giant mountain that comes out of the middle of nowhere. I don't think that's the case in Kansas, but I don't know. I've never been there. I want to make sure I'm safe. So that is, again, it's an advanced feature. Not everyone is aware it exists. You can get a lot of utility out of that, especially if you're flying in areas of hazardous terrain. Rotary wing flyers, they might get a lot of use of that too. Any of those airspaces, by the way, if you tap on the airspace itself, the map will highlight what that airspace is. So if you need more information, in this case, this is a MOA. I need more information about it. Maybe I want to route around it. Maybe I just want to verify my altitude, verify the times it's active. If I tap on that on the map, I can see that information. So here is the information for this MOA. I can see when it's active. I can cross-reference that against my planned altitude, cross-reference that against my planned departure, all of that stuff. So some additional layers I want to look at on my profile view. All my layers are going to be up here in the upper right layer selector. Not all of these will be available to all users. Performance Plus users have access to a couple more different layers. This is a new one. I'll talk about this tomorrow as well. We have a headwind, tailwind component, and estimated ground speed layer in profile view. And when you tap on these, what we will do, I'll go to estimated ground speed, we'll tell you that at these different altitudes, based on where your route is, that's what your estimated ground speed, based on our data, the performance profile we have for your aircraft, that's what we think your estimated ground speed will be. So when you're planning this, you can decide like, okay, I was planning, in this case it looks like we're actually at the appropriate altitude, but if we were flying at 20,000 feet, we might be able to look at this and go, oh, we should increase our altitude, or in another case, maybe decrease the altitude. Again, this is a relatively new feature. It's available for Performance Plus users. I want to highlight our reported turbulence layer. This is for Pro and Performance Plus users, but you need to have a registered Sentry. What this shows is reported turbulence along your route in the profile view. This is also available in the map view as well. So I'm back on my map view. I just looked at some different products in my profile view. Some additional data layers I want to look at for my analysis. I'll tap on aeronautical layer. All my layers that I have available will appear in the map layer selector. The short version is my left-hand side is charts, right-hand side is data. That's the simplest way to describe it. These can be combined in different ways. You can overlay different layers with one another. It's not infinite, though. Not all layers can be overlaid. I'll go ahead and turn on my Jeppesen IFR high layer, because in this example, this is how I'm flying today. You can see that replaced my aeronautical map layer. What you choose to display is based on personal preference. Gary mentioned that even when he's doing instrument flying, he likes to use the sectional. Again, if that's your preference, it doesn't matter. You can do whatever it is you prefer. We can combine the charts with the weather data. Here I'm going to combine that with our radar data. And the radar data will show effectively 1 hour in the past. It's updated in 5-minute increments. And you can see a timestamp in the upper right-hand corner to tell you how recent that data is. It looks like, assuming I'm departing soon, it looks like I'm pretty clear along my path of flight. You can see there's some activity out here, but I shouldn't need to concern myself with that. This is the clouds layer. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the satellite layer. The satellite layer is updated every 30 minutes. This is showing a forecast rather than a history. This is why these layers can't be combined. We can't show you both the past and the future at the same time. So this is showing you a forecast, whereas the radar layer is showing you history. And it is color-coded and grayscale. There's 2 different satellite versions you can use. Just like with radar, it has a timestamp. Turbulence is the same way. There's one little difference with that. The turbulence is also a forecast. This is showing you the future. But now we have an altitude slider at right. We can adjust that based on our planned altitude to see where it is we would like to fly. The level it is at which we'd like to fly. Are we going to encounter any forecast turbulence? Reported turbulence is different. That is turbulence that has been reported at those altitudes. So this is that reported turbulence layer. So now we're looking at reported turbulence at 22,000 feet. Each of these dots is an incidence of turbulence. The way we get the data is on the Sentry. There's an accelerometer in there. There's GPS in there. We take the accelerometer data. We take the speed, GPS, all that stuff. We have an algorithm that says this unit experienced turbulence, and we know what altitude you were at. Once you reconnect to the internet, that gets sent up to our servers, our cloud, and then we push that information back out to others. You do need to register a Sentry to have access to this. If you don't know how to do that or you have questions, I'd be glad to answer those as well. Just like with everything else, there's a timestamp. This is my cloud layer. It has a slider on the right-hand side as well. Again, all I'm doing is just going through different ways you can use all our tools to plan a flight. To pre-plan, to make sure you're briefing the flight, everything you need to know. This is my NOTAMs and TFRs. Again, it doesn't look like I'm passing through anything I need to concern myself with. And to be honest, I didn't do this on purpose to have it not go through anything. It just did. So when I turn those layers on, I get a good idea of what I need to be concerned with. It doesn't look like I need to be concerned with anything. However, for anything I want to get more information on, if I was passing through one of those, this one's pretty close to my flight path. Maybe I want to see what's going on over there. You can tap on any of those. It'll be highlighted on your map, and you'll see information about that specific NOTAM. Again, it looks like there's exercise scheduled, surface at 3,500 feet. I shouldn't be anywhere near that altitude, so even if I get off my center line, I should be fine. It doesn't seem like it's going to be of concern to me. I'll go ahead and close that out. Back to my flight plan drawer. One last map layer that might be useful. This is my flight categories. These are METAR derived, so as the METAR is updated, as long as we're receiving data, these will update too. So if you have an ADS-B in, Sentry, Stratus, whatever you're using, and it's receiving data, these will be updated at altitude too. So this is a very useful layer. It helps you identify like where might I divert to if that were to happen. This is something that kind of breaks the scenario I was planning a little bit, where this is more visual than instrument, but we have some tools based on how you want to fly where you can kind of combine these together. I've just enabled my aerial map, and I've zoomed in to a specific portion of my route, and you can see that there is a lake off to the left of my route. For the sake of this scenario, I'm imagining if I'm at altitude, I should be able to see that lake. And I can use this as a reporting point, as a reference to myself, as a navigation aid to make sure, and I realize this is more VFR, but I just want to make sure I highlight this tool, to make sure that I'm where I expect to be when I expect to be there. There's a couple different ways we can use visual elements like that. We can go ahead and just add a point, create this to my route. So the way I'm imagining this is I'm flying along. When I hit this waypoint, I should be able to see that lake off my left wing. If I can't, either the weather is worse than I expect it to be or something else is wrong. So all I did was I tapped and held, and you can do this anywhere on the map, tap and hold. You'll see the position for where I tapped and held is displayed. Those other numbers that are there, that last number, 1,132 feet, that's the elevation of that position. And this works anywhere on Earth. You want to find out the elevation of a position, tap and hold, last 4 digits, or 3 digits maybe, or maybe 5. That's the elevation. The distance and the magnetic there, that's going to be from where I'm at, my GPS is at, to that position. So when I took this screenshot, I was 271 nautical miles away, and it was 005 magnetic heading. So I'll go on more, and I'm going to tap on Save. I can just add this into my route as a lat-long coordinate. I'm going to save this because I want to save this both for route planning and future reference. So if you're flying with a flying club and you have routes that you like to fly, it may be helpful to save these as custom waypoints for future reference. So you can see the name I gave it here is a beam Longmire. Longmire is just the name of that lake. I'll go ahead and save that. So now I have this added to my route. It just says a beam Longmire, and in the future, I can just plan with that point. I can plan at that point the same way I plan with anything else. I can type in its name. I can bring it up on the map. I can tap on it the same way I do anything else. So I'm going to go ahead. That's added to my route. I have a beam Longmire added to my route. You can see it there in my flight plan drawer. And the way this should work is when I'm flying along, glance down at my iPad. When I hit that waypoint, I should be able to see that lake. Again, if I don't, something's wrong. Or at least the flight is not proceeding as I expected. So some last bit of pre-flight planning, and this can be done en route as well, as long as you pack for the flight. I've packed for the flight. I've tapped on my destination airport here. From right-hand side, I've brought in my information pane. If I'm a Performance Plus subscriber, I can see a 3D view of that airport. And let me go back, and I forgot there was a video here. So all this is a 3D virtual view of that airport. You can tap on the individual runways, that's what's happening, and then preview what the approach looks like. I believe these are all 1 mile finals, and you can see the glide slope is displayed up there. So if you've never flown into an airport before, and it's day and night, and you can preview the approach lighting, everything. If you've never flown into an airport before and just want to mentally pre-brief what to expect as you're approaching, you can use this feature and get an idea where the obstacle's at. Looks like there's a series of towers right in front of that runway, and just get an idea of mentally, this is what I can expect when I'm approaching that runway. From my airport information pane, I can view current METARs, and I can look at any procedures I have. So the procedures, if you have Jeppesen plates, you'll see Jeppesen approach. If you don't, you'll see government plates. If you haven't downloaded them, you'll see a little icon that says these haven't been downloaded. You can do all of that by tapping the procedures plate, or if you reopen the flight plan drawer and tap on procedures right up here, open up procedures. Any procedure available based on the airports loaded in your route are here. You'll notice there's a traffic pattern. This is for, well, it'll just display the traffic pattern on the map. I'm going to go ahead and look at my approaches into Tango Oscar Papa. This is everything that is available to me. If I'm receiving weather data, this will show me winds as well, so you can see what winds are ideal for, in this case, landing or departing, depending on what you're looking at. You'll notice here it just says winds calm. If winds were not calm, you'd see a flag that says best winds on whatever runway had the ideal winds. ForeFlight doesn't know if this is a towered airport, what runway is being used, so our suggestion will be based only on the winds, so just bear that in mind. So pick whatever it is approach you want to use. Once you have that loaded, I think Gary walked through this also, pick your transition fix, and there's one other feature that Performance Plus users have that you may not have seen before if you've done this and see some stuff that you don't recognize. Is your Performance Plus user, you have the option to enter in custom decision altitudes. So if you know, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. So basically what we're doing is we're taking the Jeppesen data and then pairing it with any pilot entered data about inoperative equipment to display accurately all of your minimums. So in this case, you can see my airport. This is what you would not see if you weren't a Performance Plus subscriber. We can see all my altitude, all my decision altitudes are displayed here. I can look at my equipment status. If I know via NOTAM or local information that some of the equipment is out, we can go ahead and make that change directly on this tab. And then we will see those changes, once I add this to my route, we'll see those changes made on our approach plate. So my decision altitude and decision height didn't actually change with the rail out per the Jeppesen procedure, but my visibility minimums did change. So I'll go ahead and select that because that's what I know is out. I'll go ahead, add this to my route, and now I have my approach plate loaded on my map. I know Gary showed this. Approach plate is loaded on my map. And I know that I have a custom altitude on here because it's highlighted in magenta. So I'm no longer flying what's just on the published plate itself. We finished planning our flight. Some other tools I just want to highlight here. I got about 8 minutes left. Some en route tools to keep us safe. So we're flying along. This is all done via sim, by the way. So if you notice some of like the altitudes or speeds look wonky, it's just done on a sim, like while I'm taking screenshots and stuff. So if I tap on my any approach that's loaded into my route, you'll see all my options here. This is for more complex route building. This is something we do a lot of with military users, business users who have very specific ways they fly. What I want to highlight is look down here. I have my change approach, change instrument approach fix, change minimum 3D procedure. Some of this is performance, some of this is available to everyone else. What I want to do is activate my approach. Once I go ahead and activate my approach, I'll show that again. I have my entire route loaded in here, route string beginning to end, including my approach. That was ILS into runway 13. Once I activate the approach, all of that's gone. My current position is now the first element in my route string, then my approach, then my destination. So if you can just hit activate approach as you get near that first transition fix. and we'll kind of declutter that flight plan drawer for you. So this is a video. I think this video is 3 minutes long, so I'm probably just going to talk through this and not play the whole thing. But this is just showing how you can combine a bunch of different ForeFlight tools en route at altitude to make it easier to fly, and also some safety options as well. So I'm just cruising along here. Again, this is all in a sim, so if the speeds and altitudes are weird, forgive me. I've just tapped on my instrument panel here along the bottom. That's turned on by this blue, the blue indicator up there. All of those instruments can be adjusted. If whatever you have displayed on your device, if you tap on it, you'll see what else is available there. One of the things we recommend, you can do whatever you want. One of the things we recommend is always having right here, this should be nearest airport. If you have nearest airport as one of the instruments, as you are flying along, this will always be replaced with whatever airport is closest to you, and it will update dynamically. I also have my ground speed displayed, my GPS altitude, the accuracy of my GPS, your current position can be displayed as well. So what I was trying to show is just how you can combine all of those things. Let's see what I turn on here. Tap on any field, and you'll be able to see what you'd like to add. So I had nearest airport already displayed, I think. I'm going to go ahead. What do I turn on here? OK, the grid MORA is minimum off-route altitude. If you're flying in hazardous area, that tells you if you want to be safe, don't go below the grid MORA altitude. So this video continues. If you put this online, I'll try to edit it to make sure I include the entire video. But basically, I'm just doing an en-route diversion to that airport. It's within my glide advisor. That's what the green ring is on here. This is my track vector. The track vector can be customized. I can see my own ship distance rings. So all I'm doing is I'm tapping on that airport, getting all the information I need, and I'm diverting to it. That was what this was telling me, the nearest airport. And you can see I'm starting to make my turn and head or I guess towards Foxtrot 30. And then there's some other situational awareness tools I can pull up that'll include things like synthetic vision. I probably want to have traffic on. Again, how you do this will vary based on how you operate. I kind of have it covered up, but you can see my glide ring shrinking as my altitude drops. My range rings are the same because they are set to be 5, 10, and 20. I'm showing some alerts pop up here. In this case, this is my sync rate alert. I want to show this at least until I show the synthetic vision. At some point, I put on the synthetic vision, so I just want to show you what that looks like. There you go. So the synthetic vision is accurate. We can see this is where the runway is. If there were obstacles or terrain, that would be highlighted as well. Same thing with traffic. So after completing our flight, one last little thing. I'm not going to go over logbook stuff. Again, I imagine this was the first leg of a multi-leg flight. I want to plan my next leg, and I want to do it as quickly as possible. This is the same flights tab I was on earlier. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom. You'll see a button there. It says Add Next Flight. Once you tap Add Next Flight, what ForeFlight does is we take your destination airport. That becomes your departure airport. We add, I think, 3 hours to your estimated landing time. There's some time add that we add. All of your aircraft information, all your passenger information is carried over. So it makes it quicker to plan. Again, you might want to do this all from scratch. This makes it quicker to plan. I landed in Tango Oscar Papa. I'll go ahead and hit destination. Now I'm headed into Osh. Aircraft's the same. Performance profile is the same. I can do the same route advisor. Go ahead and add that to my route. All of my payload is the same as well. If I need to make changes, I could do that. So I got about 3 minutes left. Somebody's going to set up right after me. I'll be in the hall if you need to ask me any questions. Anybody have any questions? Now they'd like the whole group to hear. Otherwise, I can pick people up out in the hall.
How do you turn on that PDF weather briefing?
Instead of the HTML?
Yeah.
Are you a personal account or a business account?
Personal.
OK, it's in settings. So more settings in the filter. Just type in briefing, and you'll see I think it says default briefing option. If you don't see it, I can show you. And you should see graphical HTML and graphical PDF. That's a good question. I know we've thought about, because there's so many NOTAMs, and some of them aren't relevant. Yeah. So formally, I don't know. I know people have worked with trying to use like AI and teach it how to decode them. My understanding is that the NOTAMs themselves are not standard. There's no, like METARs are standard, that NOTAMs are not. So like it's very difficult for a computer to do that. No, so we'd have to hire someone whose whole job is to just go through NOTAMs and decode them. And I don't know how many people it would take to go through every NOTAM on Earth. So that's why it would have, like the METARs we can decode automatically because they're standard. NOTAMs are not standard. So it has been looked at. I don't know the status of it though, but it's been thought about.